All right, Colin, switching to football. We got spring football coming up next week. We are looking forward to Lincoln Riley's press conference where I'm sure he's going to have some news for us because there's always some news at the top, usually injury-related or guys that enter the portal, so we'll see about that. But that aside, which player on the offensive side of the ball do you think needs to take the biggest step forward for Oklahoma?
Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of options here. But I'm going to kind of go with maybe an easier answer. I just think Jaden Hazelwood has to be that guy this spring. You know what I'm saying? I mean, losing CeeDee Lamb, I understand that Charleston Rambo is going to be the deep threat that he is, but at the same time, if you don't have that other guy to be that strong threat on the perimeter, then Rambo could be essentially neutralized. So to me, Jaden Hazelwood has to be that dude. And that's the other thing is, look, we saw Theo Weiss flash against Baylor down in Waco, right? He had some really impressive plays. I think we're all kind of expecting Trajan Bridges to make those steps. But Hazelwood, you needed to see what he could bring to the table, and I'm not quite sure that there was ever a point where you could really pinpoint his success, even though there were those markable plays throughout the season. So I want to see what Hazelwood does because he has a chance to be the go-to target in this offense. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people have labeled this guy as one of the most dominant high school football players that they had ever seen, i.e. a Cam Newton, if I remember correctly. So I want to see what Jaden does, and if he does what he needs to, he could easily be wideout number one in Lincoln Riley's offense.
No, I think that's a good pick. I enjoy it because you see what CeeDee Lamb meant to the offense last year, and watching the X-receiver be the dominant receiver was also something that we hadn't seen from a Lincoln Riley offense. It's usually been the guy at Z. It's been Hollywood Brown. It's been D.D. Westbrook. And I think some people expected to be Charleston Rambo because he's a little bit older, came in with CeeDee Lamb, and he has all of the tools that you would want to see from a guy who could take the top off the defense. But I like the Hazelwood comparison. I just wonder if he's going to have that sophomore year that CeeDee had when he's coming back this year. Maybe 2021 is the year, but I like it because if you have that sort of, well, not talent, but production at that X receiver, it opens up other parts of your offense. I'm going to go with Creed Humphrey. I think Creed Humphrey needs to have a tremendous spring because we saw him take a step back, or we saw what it looked like for him not to have so many seasoned vets around him to what we found out was make up for mistakes that he made. Also, that dude did not look great against zero techniques. Bravion Roy ate his lunch in 2 games. Up against Tyler Shelvin at LSU, he got destroyed. You need to take a step forward because going into last season, we were talking about that man being a first-round pick. And now, not only is he coming back to school, people took him off their boards after the Big 12 championship game and definitely after the Peach Bowl. And with this group of kids that is returning on that offensive line, I mean, Adrian Ely, you'll get some Eric Swinson, as much as people don't like to hear it. Marquise Hayes. You'll also get some Bray Walker in there. You'll get Daryl. Man, I'd love to see Daryl Simpson get some snaps, but maybe he's just not ready. And you hope to see a guy like Stacey Wilkins come on. But this is very much Creed Humphrey's offense. You have a green quarterback behind you, super talented, never started a snap, right? No matter who it is, Tanner Mordecai, Tanner Schaefer, or Spencer Rattler. You're going to have really, really talented guys at wide receiver, but only Charleston Rambo is the guy that you absolutely trust, having been in this system for 4 years, because he's going to be a redshirt junior. So I really expect Creed to get into that leadership role, to take it over, and to shore up parts of his game that were just lacking. I mean, from a couple of botched snaps to getting destroyed by zero techniques, guys that frankly were just bigger than him, that sunned him. He's supposed to get some help from his guards on a couple of those things. But in the NFL, you're going to be expected to take on that one technique, that zero technique by yourself, and it not be, hard for you to do. It's just part of what you're supposed to do. So that's the guy that I'm watching for, and I understand that's going to be difficult for us to evaluate because we get 20 minutes to watch practice, and it's usually them stretching, and we won't see a lot until spring game, and then probably not going to see a whole lot of people challenging Creed Humphrey. But I'd like to see Bill Beatonbow talk about his maturity and how he's progressed, because Bill has a really great understanding of his offensive line. He can tell you when they're good. He can tell you when they're bad. And he was vocal about, hey, we expected Creed to be better this year, and I expect him to be better in 2020. So switching to the other side of the ball, who do you think needs to take the biggest step defensively?
So I provided an easy pick in the offensive side, so I'm going to go with an under-the-radar pick for my defensive guy. And I think there are a lot of candidates here, like Deshaun White has to probably replace Kenneth Murray. I mean, Trey Brown has to replace someone that I think was incredibly valuable in Parnell Motley. But I want to go with LaRon Stokes, and here's why. Neville Gallimore leaving is a bigger loss than people expect because it was him facing double teams while penetrating the offensive line that really opened things up for guys like Ronnie Perkins or Stokes, who became the Big 12 Defensive Newcomer of the Year. That being said, when you get an accolade like that, that says, hey, you proved to us that you got the talent. Now, prove to us that you have what it takes to fill in for other stars on the defensive line when they leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, Stokes came in with so much hype. All the coaches talk about how this guy just does his job. He does it well. He listens, and he plays with a high motor. Well, now, while he can do all that, and that's perfectly all fine, he's got to do more than 15 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and a half sack. I mean, bar none. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be a higher level reach now that Gallimore is gone, now that Q Overton is gone, now that Dylan Fa'amatu is gone. What is LaRon Stokes going to provide me on the defensive line? One that could be shifting and see very new faces. I'm looking at LaRon, and I want to see what he can prove. The former Big 12 Defensive Newcomer of the Year has to look like a seasoned veteran.
No, I think that's a good pick. I also am looking for leadership from him like you are. I think that they're going to get some help from guys like Jalen Redmond. I expect Marcus Hicks to come on. I expect the defensive line to be extremely strong, and it has an opportunity, not has an opportunity, it ought to be the strongest unit for Alex Grinch this year, led by LaRon Stokes, who's going to have to, as you say, pick up the slack that is left by Neville Gallimore and those graduating seniors. I think it's a nice pick. I'm going to go with Bookie. I need Bookie to take.
I like it.
I mean, the slot corner position has been one of absolute need for some time. As much as I'll bang on the safety position, Delarian Turner-Yell and Patrick Fields, when they played well, the defense played well. Hadn't been able to say that about safeties positions in 3 years, quite honestly. And the last time I felt really good about the situation, other than going into this 2020, was when Tony Jefferson was still running around back there. So it's been some time, right? It's been some time. But with Bookie, you had the only guy that Grinch trusted last year to play the slot corner position week in and week out. You had other guys that tried to come in there and play, from Chance Sylvie to Justin Broyles to even Trajan Bridges to a degree, right? And he's going into the junior year of his career here, which means he's an absolute leader now. Whether you want him to be or not, he's one of the guys you're going to have to depend on because he's got more snaps than a lot of the guys that have ever played that position. You also are going to need him to tutor Justin Harrington to a degree, right? You're going to need somebody that can also help raise up guys like Jeremiah Cradell, who's coming in. Jamal Morris is coming off of a redshirt year. There's a number of talented kids back there, but the guy that they just loved was Bookie. And he's a lightning rod, and I understand that. But when he was good, he was really good. Now, again, South Dakota, that's his best game, an FCS opponent. But he played well in other stretches. He had some goofs. He had some stupid penalties. But having that guy solidify his spot at the nickel slot corner position is going to mean the world for this defense in 2020 if he can get it done, because then Grinch gets to really focus on growing up his safeties a little bit more, and they get to really start to fine-tune this defense that got better by a touchdown last year, right? I mean, they go from giving up 33 points a game to 27 points a game. What if they can get down to that 23 mark, that 22 mark? And you know what? They were looking like they were going to do just that until, LSU happens and they drop 63 on you. And you give up 48 to Kansas State, and then Iowa State, and so forth, so on, right? But a lot of that can be corrected just with guys having a year in the system. So, am I off there? Do you like it?
I actually love that, and I want to add to it real quick. Look, Bookie, as you mentioned, he's a really good player. He has to take that step, but now, maybe more than ever, he'll be facing a higher level of competition for that spot. You mentioned Justin Harrington. A lot of people are going to want to see a 6'3", 214-pound defensive back in there. You mentioned Jeremiah Cradell coming off that redshirt year. He's a guy everyone's excited about. But then you have to think about it. Trey Norwood is coming back. Like Jamal Morris could get in there. There are so many candidates to play nickel. And, oh, by the way, Jaden Davis played in the slot in their dime packages last season. So what happens if Jaden Davis moves to the inside? I don't know. There's just a lot of names vying for Bookie's spot. He does have to take that next step, not only for the defense, but for himself, because it doesn't matter what his reputation is as an individual. Grinch has got candidates to replace him, and that's not something that should be comforting for him. But I do think that he is the caliber of individual and player that can meet the challenge, so I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. Great pick.
I got a sports radio comp for you. Is Brendan Radley-Hiles the defensive back version of Jake Fromm? 5-star player coming out of high school. Has fended off everybody who's tried to take his spot. Still not beloved by fans. Been on some very good football teams. Hasn't won it all. That's where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah, I like that because, Fromm, I'm not a Fromm guy, whereas I'm a Bookie guy. I just don't know that Fromm is going to provide me what I need at the end of the day when it's 2 minutes left on the clock and I need to go get a win. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I also feel like Bookie is the guy that has the ability to step up when I need him to because of who he is as a charactered individual, what he is as an emotional player, and honestly, his flat-out talent. We know he has the tools, whereas I'm not sold on Jake Fromm's arm strength or accuracy in crunch time or his ability to execute an offense in a hurried manner out of the spread. Whereas I do think that Bookie has what it takes to fit into this speedy system. It's just he was a sophomore in the last season. So I like the comp, but I just feel like the ceiling is higher for Bookie Radley-Hiles than Fromm's. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do. I'm a Fromm fan. I'm a Bookie fan. That's one of the reasons I trotted that out. But I can see it. I also would add, as a freshman, Bookie got torched by David Sills V in a game where West Virginia puts up over 700 yards of offense. We've seen him get torched by bigger, faster wide receivers before. But I would add this to my comparison, which is Jake Fromm was never asked to play running back or tight end or wide receiver. Okay? Bookie is a corner. He's a corner. He needs to be on the numbers and the boundary, and he's never had that opportunity. And now he's kind of stuck, right? Because that's why I'm saying he needs to take a leap, because this is the year for him to absolutely, positively embrace this role. And he has from a mental standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, from an understanding what you're asked to do, going from one scheme to another, even as you're playing the same position, I really want him to be great. I would love to see Jake Fromm be great as well in the NFL. I think he should have stayed at Georgia, quite honestly. But I wondered that, and I wanted to talk that through with you. So I'm glad that you indulged me on that. Thank you so much. Is there something else you wanted to get to that we didn't get to?
I'm good, man. Whatever else we need to hit on, you take it away.
What's in Houston?
Houston is the End Zone 7-on-7 tournament. A lot of talent coming in from Florida, from Colorado, from California, and, of course, the great state of Texas. So I'll be meeting with a ton of prospects out there this weekend. That is Saturday and Sunday. So a lot of interesting recruits meeting up in Houston. I'm very excited to get out there to the End Zone 7-on-7 tournament, and I will have it all for you on OUinsider.com.
Right on. Look for Colin Kennedy's stuff on OUinsider.com and on the Twitters at CKennedy247. That's at CKennedy247. Colin, thanks so much, man, taking the time.
Always fun. Let's do it again.
Right on, brother.